delegates and colleagues and friends, participants that are following us today during this session, either in person or online, and welcome to the session, The Local Green Deal, an Innovative Governance Approach for Achieving Climate Neutrality. My name is Giorgia Rambelli. I'm the Coordinator for Climate Policy and Energy Governance at the European Secretariat of ICLEI, Local Government for Sustainability, and it will be my pleasure to moderate this session today. The session is organized by the City of Mannheim in collaboration with ICLEI, and it takes place in the Multilevel Action Pavilion right here from the heart of COP26, the United Nations Climate Change Conference in 2021. So to start, why are leaders and delegates from across the globe meeting in Glasgow, and why is the world watching so closely? You probably read it on the news. The world is becoming warm because of emission from fossil fuels. This includes coal, oil, natural gas, for example, all caused by humans. You might have also have heard it on the streets in the past years with thousands of youth that have been gathering, coming together, demonstrating and demanding immediate solutions to safeguard our planet now, but also their future. You might have also seen it, experienced it with your own eyes. Extreme weather events linked to climate change, which are including heat waves, floods, forest fires, they are intensifying, and they have been really part of our summer here in Europe. We've been facing the dreadful consequences of all of these different climate change effects. The past decades have been the warmest on record, and governments are agreeing of the importance of urgent collection action that is needed. And this is why we are having this session today and why we are discussing on this panel. It is clear that the dramatic effects of climate change will change increasingly the day-to-day life of all of our citizens, and this demands effective, immediate solutions. Many of these prompt responses will have to be delivered at the local level, where communities live, they access services. This includes water, this includes energy, mobility, but also access to food, green spaces, to a good quality of life. As the areas of the world in which most people live and work, they are often also the most vulnerable to the effects of climate change. And increasingly, there is an acknowledgement the cities and local governments are the places where the type of solutions needed will be ultimately delivered, where these societal challenges will have to be addressed together with the environmental and economic consequences. So with this consideration as a backdrop, today we want to discuss how cities, local governments are facing all of these challenges hands-on and explore how they are delivering effective solutions. They are raising their commitment, and we will hear very soon about that, but also they are accelerating as much as possible action across sector and across level of government and across different parts of society. So the climate emergencies that we are living and the green recovery that we are so much in need of to become better, more resilient, more fair society following the pandemic that we have just been living represent not only a challenge. And today we want to focus not only on the challenge, but particularly on the solutions that are being implemented and on the opportunity that we have to deliver this dramatic change from an environmental, an economic, and a social point of view. So we will in particular explore how cities have been taking this opportunity forward, looking into European policy and looking at Europe is planning to deliver on a Green Deal, a European Green Deal that can deliver on climate neutrality by 2050 by securing accessible, affordable, sustainable mobility for everyone, better nature-based solutions, and increasing biodiversity, and also, of course, a more clean energy system, among others. So today we will talk about that, and we will talk how cities like Mannheim in particular have been delivering the Green Deal already starting from now on the ground. We will talk about the ambition of this journey, and we will talk about the implementation of this journey. So to get us started, it's my great pleasure to welcome to the stage with me Mayor Peter Kutz, the mayor of Mannheim, who will be having a nice interview with us and discussing with us what Mannheim is doing. But before I give the floor to the first question, I would like to go through a couple of housekeeping rules in particular. So I would like to remind all of our participants following online that we have interpretation available in German. So you can click on interpretation on the right corner of the panel at the bottom of your Zoom window, and you can select there German as your language. If you have any question for the speakers, you will also have the chance to interact with us. In particular, you can do so throughout our session by using the chat function and posting your question either in German or in English. We will make sure to have enough time for you to join our conversation. But it's my pleasure and my prerogative to be the first one starting this conversation with Mayor Kurz, and maybe starting immediately with a question. So, Mayor Kurz, what is the local Green Deal and why has Mannheim decided to implement one in its territory?
Thank you, Georgia. When the European Commission announced the European Green Deal, the cities in Europe have taken note with great expectations and also with support, because it's the right approach in the right time. It's a broader approach than just to focus on reduction of carbon, and it's an approach which is close to the Sustainable Development Goals. And we have to be aware that if we want to meet our goals regarding the climate, we need, for example, to have a circular economy. So it's about transformation in a broader sense, and this is where the European Green Deal stands for. And we had a eClay conference in Mannheim last year, and we adopted a Mannheim message, which calls for localizing the European Green Deal. And of course, we feel obliged, and we committed ourselves to be a front-runner city to localize the Green Deals. We are not limited by the goals of the European Green Deal, so we go a step further, and this is already one result, to accelerate our efforts and to become climate neutral by 2030, for example. It's also a program which is collaborative. So we are addressing our private sector, our citizens, and we want to have concrete deals. So it's not about more promises, it's about real commitment. And this is also a framework. It's not another plan. It's a framework and it's a process to reach our goals within especially the next 10 years. And within this framework, we want to boost and accelerate our concrete actions in our city.
Yeah, we have to share today our microphone. No, but thank you very much for sharing this first sneak preview of what the Mannheim Green Deal looks like. I think your point around the integrated solutions that represent a new approach to the delivery of the Green Deal is particularly important. I also think that, of course, the fact that you are talking about this showcases once again how much political commitment there is from the city of Mannheim and from cities around Europe to really bring this climate neutrality goal home. So I think it's a fascinating opportunity, not only to deliver on climate change, but also to really improve our society. And asking about that, I was wondering, we have a lot of different plans, there are a lot of different initiatives, a lot of different programs that we tried and we tested in the past, but what does make the Green Deal that Mannheim is delivering now different from what has happened in the past, and or even what other cities are trying to do in line with what Mannheim's vision is? What is the difference there, and what is so innovative about it?
We called the session Governance Innovation, and I think there are several dimensions of this innovation. First of all, for ourselves, we started with analyzing what is being done in our city already. And so we are taking stock of our efforts, and we identified gaps. We identified around 150 possible deals for fields of action, of concrete action, and of, let's say, contracts between us as a city and other stakeholders. And this is the first step. And for us, it was kind of a new approach, and to really analyze and go into the depth. The next innovation is that it's really not a top-down process. It's a process, and as I said already, it's a framework. And we want to invite not only to implement plans, but invite to create plans together with us. And the third innovation we hope to reach is regarding the European Union. I think in the end, local Green Deals could provide information for the other levels of government, for the European level, for the national level. And what we need is a kind of a counterflow mechanism to really see what's working on the ground and what is missing, and to adjust maybe also programs from the European level and the national level. And in the end, maybe we can have a kind of a contract between the city level and the other levels to reach the goals. And the fourth innovation could be that if this is going to be a movement around Europe, that cities develop local Green Deals, this can really make a change that we lacked in the past. So these are four dimensions of innovations connected to the idea of local Green Deals. We are in close cooperation with ICLEI to develop the concept. And of course, we want to share also not our successes only, but also our lessons learned with our cities. So I'm looking very much forward to hear from Glasgow and to learn from Glasgow, of course.
Thank you very much for giving us a bit of an insight in how the Mannheim Green Deal looks like at the moment. I think the point that you made on the stock taking and in evaluating where you're starting from to embrace this journey and to embark in it, also without being eluded, you know, of what the potential is, but really trying to build upon what is already existing. It's a particularly important one. And it also makes me think about the fact that we always talk about the successes, but even when you're not successful, you can learn a lot from this. And this to me shows a lot, once again, the incredible transformative power of cities that can act as pilot and really learn and really reinvent themselves and deliver this type of innovation. So I think maybe this test and trial sort of approach could be a fifth, even innovative dimension of this Green Deal, where really you can co-create with your cities and learning from others also and what they have delivered on the ground. So I look also forward to hear more about what Glasgow's approach is, of course. But I would have one more question for you. In practice, we heard now about the framework, we heard about the way that the Green Deal in Mannheim is being implemented and how it is innovative. Can you tell us a little bit more concretely, how does it look like? Do you have any example of deals that you can share with us? And how do they fit, for example, in the objectives of the European Green Deal?
Yes, I want to share some slides, only to have a glimpse on our Green Deal. First of all, it shows that we are oriented towards the eight pillars of the European Green Deal, and especially, of course, to the underlying task of a just transition and involving partners. Let's go to the next slide, and I want to show you the systematic work I mentioned. So it's a lot about the analysis, and if you come to the bottom line, you see the mentioned potential deals. And I This is only one of the 8 pillars, and I want just to highlight the 2 deals which are mentioned in the bottom line. Next slide, please. One is that we accelerated our ambition, or boosted our ambitions, and so we want to develop a climate action plan 2030, and the biggest deal within this climate action plan, we will hear about it by Dr. Müller, the CEO of the MEV, is the decarbonization of our district heating system, which is a prerequisite to switch off then our 2000 megawatt coal-fired power plant. So this is probably the most important deal, or the most effective deal. So this is something we already accomplished with our city council, that they agreed to this ambition. And the other one is that we are going to apply for the 100 climate neutral and smart cities mission of the European Commission. And of course, this is not set yet, but we want to apply for it. So, and I want to show you 2 more examples, and they relate to the question of biodiversity. And you see the same system. And let's have a look on the next slide. Yeah, you see we will have the German National Garden Show in 2023, and we will focus on the questions of climate, energy, environment, and food security. And at the end, there will be a permanent green artery of 62 hectares, which will be unsealed, and a green space for our city for the future. So this is also quite a big deal. And the other is that we are already committed to the Trees in Cities challenge of UNEC. And already in the year 21, we committed to plant 70,000 trees to secure the future of our woods. So this is an example how we create the European, the local Green Deal, and how our methodology is.
Thank you very much. I think it's really clear how the integrated dimension of your local Green Deal look like across this different sector. I think it also appears quite clearly the concrete dimension, these different measures and the collaboration that you're having with your citizens, with the private sector, with different types of institution and organization within the ground. The international approach was also there, where you are contributing to the largest challenges, for example, together with the CCC initiatives. So now my question would be, how about the European dimension of this Green Deal? So it feels a little bit like that this Green Deal is already accelerating, going beyond a little bit what is being foreseen, let's say, at large for the European Green Deal. My question for you would be, what role do you think cities in Europe have within the European and the national policy making, and what role should they have in the future to ensure that this Green Deal accelerates everywhere in Europe?
We have, I think, to admit that the European Union is in comparison to some of the nation states, quite open to involve the local governments. I myself am rapporteur for the Fit for 55 package in the Committee of the Regions, so we can be directly involved in the legislation process. This is quite unique. This is, let's say, one side. The other side is that we are not only implementers, and we have to be more involved in designing the programs. And if it comes to the local Green Deal and the ambition to become climate neutral, there are a lot of sectoral programs, and they have different eligibility, they have different deadlines. So there is what I mean with the counterflow system. So there is no proof of concept on the ground. So the cities are the place where the rubber hits the road. And this has to be really more in mind. And so our call is towards the European Union, and of course also the national governments, to involve the local level more in designing the programs, to be in a permanent discussion to really adjust these kind of programs. And maybe within the program, which I mentioned, the 100 climate neutral and smart cities, there could be an innovation in that respect, because there is mentioned a climate city contract, and this could be a blueprint for this kind of really acting together in a coordinated manner and have real multi-level action.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on this. And you might be in luck today, because very shortly we will be joined by other panelists, of course, and maybe we can reflect upon a little bit the role of this mission of climate neutral cities. But I also wanted to thank you for underlining, for example, your part in the Committee of the Regions. I think this is also an essential process, and they have been, I know the Committee of the Regions has been very vocal about supporting the creation of a multi-level platform, a continuous place for exchange, where not only implementation is made across level, but where also the planning, the designing, the prioritization is made together in a co-created manner to really be fit for purpose for the needs of our citizens on the ground. So thank you very much also for bringing that to the table. I think it's an essential part of this multi-level governance discussion that we are trying to bring forward today with your Green Deal, of course, but also in this discussion. So I think it's time now to big applause also from the audience on the ground. And please, I take the opportunity also to remind everyone to send their question and post your question in the chat box, please. We will be able to get to you and to answer your question very shortly. But in the meanwhile, I will be joined on stage by two more panelists. I have the pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Matthew Baldwin. He's the Deputy Director of DigiMove and the Manager of the Commission's mission for 100 climate neutral cities by 2030. We heard about this, so I think there is already quite a few homework and expectation coming your way, I'm afraid, Mr. Baldwin. I'm also joined by Councillor Angus Miller. He is a member of the Glasgow City Council and the chair of the Council's Environment, Sustainability and Carbon Reduction Committee. Thank you very much, and thank you for being with us. We are looking forward to learn more about what's Glasgow's vision in implementing the policies toward climate neutrality, of course. And then finally, we are joined online by another panelist that will be with us later today and will be presenting with us a little bit of the experience that is coming from the City of Mannheim more on the ground. So we have Mr. Georg Muller, Dr. Georg Muller, that will be with us. He's the chairman of the executive board of the MVV Energy Agency. So thank you very much for being with us. It's a pity that we can't have you in person, but we will make sure, of course, to include in the discussion every time that is possible. Okay, so welcome, first of all. It's nice to have you here in person. We haven't had the chance to meet in person for a very long time. So I think it's quite refreshing to be able to discuss and to ask nice, but also tough questions directly. So Mr. Baldwin, we heard a little bit about the expectation that we are having now from Mannheim, but also from other cities in Europe around the implementation of this European Green Deal. So clearly there is commitment coming their way. There is not only just targets that are being set, but real life measures that are being put on the ground. But all of these measures also need to be funded, need to be supported, need to be brought to the implementation phase. So there is this eagerness of participating in the mission for 100 climate neutral cities, of course, and every other program that the European Union is bringing forward in terms of climate work. But how are we going to be able to invest in this? How are we going to be able to deliver in this? So sorry for starting with a tough question, but I think since we talk implementation today, it's important to also have our expectation set straight, and of course also ask the tough questions to the people that are supposed to support us in delivering this.
Thank you very much indeed. It's good to have to share a microphone because it gives me the time to think for the answer. It's a real pleasure to join you and colleagues today from two cities, which, if I may say, I doubt if anyone out there thinks Mannheim and thinks Glasgow can be climate neutral cities. But we've heard a really inspirational example today from Dr. Kurtz, Mayor Kurtz. Thank you very much indeed. And we look forward to hearing more from Glasgow in a moment. But your question, if I may say, goes right to the heart of the matter. We can't just make empty commitments. We're not asking cities to make empty commitments. The heart of this process of having 100 climate neutral cities is to invite cities, the cities that are chosen, to create what we're calling climate city contracts. You mentioned that, Mr. Mayor, a moment ago, which again is another innovation, a bottom-up innovation, how we implement the Fit for 55, the European Green Deal on a local level, in specific local circumstances. We expect the city to be identifying here the problems it has in getting to climate neutrality. And it's not an easy process. That last 20–30% of the emissions is expensive in marginal cost terms. So you ask about the money, and that's quite right. I would love to say that we could fund it all from inside the European Union, and I'd brought my wallet today and we could close the deal. But all the money in the EU budget or in national budgets or in city budgets won't be enough to get to climate neutrality. We will be committing 300 million euros under Horizon Europe as seed money, if you like. And a lot of this money is going to finance what we're calling the mission platform, the innovation of the Net Zero Cities Consortium, which ICLE, I'm pleased to note, is playing a key part in. And this will work with the cities to provide deep demonstrator projects to look at some of the specifics of the challenges they face. But beyond that, we hope that participating cities will have a mission label. I hope it's actually going to be a real badge, which says, we are one of these cities. We deserve extra support in structural funds or in funds coming through the Recovery and Resilience Facility. And that will help too. But last and not least, the money that comes from private finance is going to be crucial. We estimate that only about 17% of the money that cities are going to bring to deliver climate neutrality is going to come from the cities themselves. And it's going to cost around 1 billion euros for a city of just 100,000 people to get to climate neutrality. So you see already how much money is involved. The good news is that there's a lot of money out there in the private finance world. The European Investment Bank is pledged to reach 50% climate funding by 2025. High net worth individuals, I'm told, are looking for climate neutral portfolios, where in the past they were just looking to reduce their carbon footprints. So with mechanisms such as green bonds and innovative new financial mechanisms, we hope that cities will work up an investment plan to present alongside their climate city contracts to find a way forward. And we will be doing that in partnership with the cities, not telling you with the long wagging finger of the European Commission, this is how you have to do it. We want to learn from you. We want other cities to learn from you, the chosen cities, because the ultimate objective is that we get all cities to climate neutrality by 2050. It's a huge challenge, but you're right to put your finger on the money thing. And we'll want to continue working this angle extremely hard in the months to come. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Very much like for the funding, it seems like this joint panel will be an effort, a joint effort to pushing back and forth the microphone. So thank you very much for that as well. I think you're absolutely right, and we need to look at our sources. If I may also comment on that, though, I think it is true that the money is out there, but very often cities are also faced with other types of challenges. That is, developing projects that are good quality enough, having the resources, the skills, the staff capacity of bringing this forward. So I think that also will have to be potentially addressed more and more increasingly, and to really try to shape up and support cities in being able to develop such investment plans together with their climate contract. But maybe this is just a reflection for our next part of the conversation. Now, I would like to ask maybe Councillor Miller, I know that you have also endorsed the Mannheim message, and I know that you have recently also presented your draft Green Deal roadmap for the city of Glasgow. By the way, thank you very much for the hospitality. We are all delighted to be here. What does Glasgow Green Deal look like? How does it build on a Mannheim message? And maybe the same question that I had also for Mayor Kurz. How is it different from previous experiences and plans and programs?
Thank you very much. It was interesting to hear Mayor Kurz earlier talk about the experience of having the Mannheim local Green Deal, and then as a consequence of that, developing a climate action plan. I think in Glasgow, we've slightly done that process back to front. We earlier this year finalised our climate plan as a city, which has 59 actions and essentially is looking at how we can, through our various city operations and the partnerships that we have with public, private, third and academic sectors within the city, I suppose coordinate using existing processes and structures as best possible to reduce emissions. And Glasgow has an experience of since 2006. I think we've had a 41% carbon dioxide emissions reduction within the city. Obviously, that's the low-hanging fruit. We know we've got a lot further to go. And our climate plan sets out an ambitious target of 2030, which I think is common to Mannheim for carbon net zero. One of the actions as part of that action plan, though, was to develop a Green Deal, because we recognise the value of the approach that other cities are leading forward on. And in particular, we understand the need for a kind of whole systems approach to fundamentally root and branch review all of the systems and processes that we have within our city to tackle the climate emergency and to fundamentally retool the city's operations for net zero. So a few weeks ago, just we announced and launched our call for ideas for the Glasgow Green Deal, which very much builds on the Mannheim message and the principles that are embedded within that. And obviously we have COP26, which ironically is a little bit of an interlude in the a bit of a barrier to actually getting that engagement and that process of collaboration and co-design with our citizens out there. But very much after this massive event in the city has been taking place as a legacy from COP26, we will be taking forward that process of collaboration, of engagement, of fundamentally putting citizens and communities within the city at the heart of coming up with the ideas for action of how we can build on not just the existing work that's in train, which is outlined in our climate plan, but what are the fundamental shifts and the fundamental rethinks and redesigns that we need to move forward. As part of it, we have 8 areas of focus. I won't go through them all, but there'll be issues that are common to many cities around infrastructure. And we were talking there about district heating. That's not an experience that is particularly well established within Scotland, but it's something that Glasgow is very keen to move forward. Decarbonisation of home heating and transport are some of the big intractable issues that we know too much of a reliance on public finance has stymied the progress of change that we require. And also looking as well at exactly what Matthew was talking about there, that kind of programme of investment that not for national and local government alone, but to, I suppose, sell to international investors the opportunity to be part of the economic and social and cultural transformation that we will require as a city to get to net zero. So one of the things that we've also published as part of the Green Deal is our £30 billion green print for investment, for example, and that has a range of different projects, from a motorway cap over the M8, which runs the main motorway that runs through the city centre in Glasgow, to, for example, opportunities around district heating, and also the Clyde Climate Forest, which is one of our main ambitions around sequestration opportunities, which will see an 18 million total of trees across the city region planted to, I suppose, support that residual emissions reduction. So we're actively quoting and looking for investment and blended investment from both national and local governments. But that's something that this Green Deal process, because it's not simply, I think, as Mayor Kurtz said, it's not simply an action plan or a document that we publish, but a framework for how we take forward this action on an ongoing basis. That's something that we'll absolutely be looking to develop and looking to take forward.
Thank you very much. And I think the fact that this is a legacy somehow of also the negotiation and this possibility of being in Glasgow today, it's already a positive message that we can bring home. I think also these integrated, co-created approaches, of course, come with not only the potential of being a great solution, because they allow you to inhabit this Green Deal with a framework that is also for citizens a way to be inspired and to directly interact. But it can also become a big deal in terms of implementation, especially when it comes to social effect that this can have. And I would like maybe to ask Dr. Mueller on the line to share a little bit his thoughts and his experience on this. I understand that the decision to shut down the coal-fired power plant in Mannheim will mean, which is about supplying, I believe, 60% of your households with electricity and energy. This is definitely something that it's a big deal to be carried out from any point of view. So I was wondering, how are you facing this major challenge? How is this included into the Green Deal, and what kind of a deal are you trying to make in order to really achieve this objective?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Good afternoon from Mannheim to Glasgow. Actually, the Germany's coal exit, which is on the one hand politically decided upon, it's absolutely necessary from the climate protection perspective. At MVV, we did our homework in good time and have been investing consistently in expanding renewable energies and boosting energy efficiency for many years now. Let me start with the heating piece of the transformation in Mannheim, and I will continue with the electricity part in a few seconds. Our target on heating is to have converted the whole of Mannheim's district heating supply to green energies at the latest by 2030, i.e. ahead of the coal exit. It's worth noting that Mannheim, to some extent at least, actually invented district heating back in the 50s of the past century. With our so-called green heat, we are these days kind of inventing district heating a second time by making it renewable and climate neutral. How are we doing that? Put simply, we are by building on the broadest portfolio of green solutions available at any German energy company. On the one hand, we are drawing on heat from energy from waste plants based on waste from residual, commercial, and biomass sources. And on the other hand, we are gaining heat from renewable energies such as additional biomass, biomethane, waste industrial heat, scalable river heat pumps of an industrial size, and power to heat alternatives. Alongside these methods, we are also evaluating new options in the field of geothermal energy within the Mannheim area. We already reached the first major milestone on this course in spring 2020, when we connected our energy from waste plant to our central district heating network. This plant now covers up to around 30% of our annual heat requirements and has replaced part of the heat previously sourced from the large hard coal-fired power plant in Mannheim you mentioned. That is enough, for example, for us to cover all heat requirements in the summer months without having to source any heat from the current power station. The next major milestone will be achieved in 2023, so that from 2024 onwards, we will be able to generate already around 2/3 of the demand by renewables only. And just to avoid any misunderstanding, we will not be compensating for CO2 emissions by implementing offsetting measures elsewhere. but will be saving CO2 in the actual heat generation process. And maybe a second remark, additional remark, we are also deliberately avoiding transitional solutions, such as building new natural gas-fired plants instead of the existing power station, as these would trigger new lock-in effects. That way, you would still be reliant on fossil-based energy and would tend to consolidate rather than replace fossil-based structures. That's the heat transformation. Turning now to electricity, green electricity is the prerequisite for exiting fossil-based generation. That is why we already doubled our own generation capacity from renewables between 2010 and 2016, and aim to double these again until 2026, maybe even earlier, depending on the forthcoming new regulatory regime for renewables in Germany. In the longer term, we will generate 100% of our electricity from renewable energies. And furthermore, through our project development activities via UV and Windwärts, two of our major subsidiaries in this area, we will be bringing new wind farms and solar parks to the grids, and that in a whole variety of different market and regulatory models, both in Germany and in many other countries around the world. To place these two perspectives, so the heating perspective and the electricity perspective in a wider context, the measures I referred to are all part of our Mannheim model at MBW. This model sets out our course for the future quite specifically. It has the three pillars, all of which contribute to this energy transition. Alongside heat and power, which I've mentioned, its third part consists of solutions for our customers, i.e. households, businesses, and industry. This way, we intend to be fully climate neutral by 2040 and climate positive thereafter, i.e. we actually remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. The way we see it, our big deal, as you called it, consists of a number of smaller deals. For example, with the City of Mannheim, as Dr. Kurz already mentioned, the surrounding region, and with our customers. We have been preparing those pieces for quite some time now and regard ourselves as being well positioned for these changes. We even believe that the course we are taking has a potential to become an example for many other cities and local authorities in Germany and maybe even in Europe.
Thank you. Thank you very much for illustrating the type of vision that you have for this transition in Mannheim, and also for talking about some of the numbers and the efforts that will be required to make this transition happen, both in the heating and in the energy system, of course. Mayor Kurz, can I ask you a question? We talked about here this big important aspect, this big important deal that you are delivering in Mannheim around this shift from coal to other more sustainable sources. These and many other deals, the 150 measures that you have identified in your own plan, I'm assuming that most citizens will be probably on board and happy of the changes that you are making on the ground. But I also expect that there might be some reluctant part of the society that maybe has not embraced quite yet the local Green Deal of Mannheim as a strategic approach for the future. Is there anything that you would like to share as a recommendation or something that you think could be helpful for other cities that might be listening to us today and might want to kick off their own local Green Deal?
May I also answer to your first question regarding what's new about the local Green Deal, and I want to underline only one specific aspect. It's the discussion not with the citizens, but it's the discussion with our industry. And this is really for the first time that we speak about strategies. And of course, not each CEO is based in Mannheim. So it's a difficult discussion. And we started an initiative about industry in Mannheim with our 13 biggest companies, and they start to discuss among each other about strategies and how to react on the task. So this is really something new. And of course, maybe there could be a next step to identify what for an industry company strategy would need for money in Mannheim, and then to discuss it, how it's possible to fund this on this local Green Deal basis. And this is the discussion towards, of course, the other levels of government, because it's not possible to fund this by the city of Mannheim alone. So this is a new discussion. And the second question is that we try to focus on, let's say, the quality of life. I think we lost a lot of qualities during the at least last 2 decades. And the question is, can we reinvent something we already had in the past? For example, if we speak about the city, then we had 60 years of a Fordistic city to separate the different sectors of life and work. And now we try to bring it together with less traffic, with more quality of life. And so I think we have to create a bold vision of a better life, not to create a vision to avoid the catastrophe. That's clear, but this is something, of course, we have to do, but it's not very inspiring. And so we try to present the vision of the future for our city, which brings, as I said, more quality and not less quality. Of course, there is also a dimension of sufficiency in it. We have this dimension also mentioned in the Mannheim method, but that doesn't mean that you have to lower your aspects and to lower your expectations towards life. I think sufficiency and quality of life is not a contradiction. And this is, of course, something we really have to work on in all levels of our societies, and we need support to realize this kind of transformation and to work together on this positive vision.
Thank you for that. I think your idea around how truly sustainable, integrated action, talking about multi-level, but also across society. You mentioned the collaboration, not only with the citizens, but also with the private sector, can really be the way to look into a win-win, this quality of life and more sustainability for our future. So I think definitely Mannheim seems to be on the right track from this perspective. But I know Mr. Baldwin also had some thoughts and would like to share with us.
Thank you very much. Just on this point, and I think there's a great danger that we're agreeing too much with each other on this panel. But I just wanted to stress, 3 points that we absolutely regard it as central to the process, that we have this strong citizens and private sector engagement. And I hear this from both of our elected officials here on the platform. It's so central. It's, again, not about the commission dictating how that should happen. Every city will be able to design its own processes, but it's the only way to ensure true sustainability in the other sense of the word, that we can really maintain this. And linked to that, of course, is exactly what you just said, Mr. Mayor, about the quality of life. We cannot expect citizens to be eternally inspired until the end of the decade by these odorless, colorless gases, which don't actually affect their lives in any way, except in the sense of the impending catastrophe on our planet. But we can stress the things that flow with these things, the better air quality, the reduced traffic and congestion, the fewer road deaths, the less noise and pollution. And these, what I call the co-benefits of action on climate change, we've got to bring up and realize for the citizens, because as you put it so eloquently, the cities are where the rubber hits the road in terms of the Green Deal. And then the third point, which flows from that again, is the whole systems approach, which I think Councillor Miller made very eloquently. and I'm sure you've experienced this, the whole city has to work in concert on this. And a big city like Glasgow, you can't say, all right, there's the transport department over here and the energy guys over here, and then the refurbishment of buildings. It's got to work together as a common piece. And I'm, again, the last one to lecture on the renaissance of what it means of how you run your cities to take place. But I just see that all the cities that are taking this on, they tell me how they have to do things differently. So we all have to do things differently, and we want to work in partnership with you on these things. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. I was wondering from Glasgow perspective. So we talked about this change that is needed, and now we need to reinvent the way that we are acting. Part of maybe the inspiration that can come for changing ways of implementing action is also learning from other cities. So I was wondering, how is Glasgow working together with other cities in its effort to reduce carbon emissions?
Thank you. A bit of a hazard when you wear glasses. No, thanks for that question. I think Glasgow's always been very keen to develop relationships and partnerships with other cities, and obviously we've participated in various ways through international networks such as ICLEI, Climate Neutral Cities, and C40 cities now for climate leadership. I think really the strength of those networks has been to date in sharing knowledge and sharing information and sharing kind of practice about the way that cities are approaching these issues and finding commonality and common cause. I think really where we want to go is to embed those approaches of collaboration across cities, both within Scotland and the UK and internationally, so that we're jointly working together to provide additionality, and there's kind of obtainable practical benefit. We really want to, as far as possible, not only understand what others are doing and then seek to replicate it, but actually work together in a concerted way, where we're potentially even sharing resources to develop, common approaches with cities that have similar experiences to Glasgow. And I think Glasgow's experience is one that I think makes it, Matthew said earlier on that Glasgow is maybe not a city, Glasgow and Mannheim perhaps aren't cities that would be automatically associated with climate neutrality or that being a realistic aspiration. But I think our experience in this city as a large post-industrial city makes us the perfect candidate for actually driving this forward and for reaching out and having partnerships with other cities with similar experiences, because we know all too well the experience of an unjust transition from deindustrialization and from the decline of heavy industry. And we're still living with the socioeconomic and health inequality impacts of that today. So we know that we have to get this right. And we know that not just speaking to, but actively working with and working in concert with other cities is going to be absolutely key to that.
Thank you. And you just spoke about the importance of the social aspect. And now this is done also in collaboration with our citizens and the impact that it has on society. And we just received a question asking from our audience, how are trade unions and works councils involved in the local Green Deals? I don't know, Mayor Kurz, if you would like to give us a start.
Yes, absolutely. This is truly essential, and they are part of the initiative. I spoke about the initiative regarding the industry in our city and also in other working groups. So we have designed different working groups on the local Green Deal, and the trade unions are part of this and are important partners. And as Councillor Miller mentioned, the unjust transition in the past is maybe also kind of reference we can make, that we have only two ways. There is the way of unforeseen disruption by the climate change and the follow-up, or we really create transformation by our own means. And this is the task, and by our own means is also directly linked to the question of just transition. And of course, there is no situation in history. We have now a situation which is a situation we never had before. It's a transformation in the dimension of the Industrial Revolution. And this time it's planned, or it should be planned. And of course, this is a very big task.
Thank you very much. I think we've been talking about this paradigm change for a while now, but I think it's very encouraging to see how this commitment is now turning into action. It's turning into action with the activities that Mannheim is doing, Glasgow is doing, but also with the impetus that seems also comes from the Commission to really support and lever what is happening on the ground in terms of implementing climate action that is truly transformational and integrated. So hopefully we are in the right direction, although I still think there is a lot of way to go. And I want to conclude our session in just a minute, asking you for your final message on what you would like to ask your other cities that might want to embark in this journey with all of you. So what suggestion would you give them, and what would you like them to see from the European Commission side, for example, also from their side to you, to inspire you in developing further action? But we have one more question for Dr. Müller, actually. So Dr. Müller, the question for you is, when the Mannheim coal power plant in 2020 and the remaining German nuclear power plants are going to be shut down, what is the Mannheim concept to fill this leak of missing energy produced, nearly 30%?
I think I answered the question in relation to heat already in my first response on your question. In terms of electricity, it's important to note that the difference between heat and electricity is that you can't transport heat over too long distances. So you need to have generation close by. Whereas electricity, we are working in Europe as one single market for power. So it's not decisive, at least, that we in Mannheim produce the electricity. We need to think in greater connections. But what we try to achieve is to make the potential for green generated electricity in Mannheim available. So locally, solar power, locally, smaller wind farms, that is the potential which Mannheim has. And in addition to have then heat and coal, heat and electricity based on renewable energies, that is the way to go.
Thank you very much for your answer, and also for reminding us of the importance of clean, sustainable energy, and especially the local one that can create added value on the ground, on the territories. This is very much at the core, I think, of the local green deals that we are implementing. So to finish, as I promised, I have one final question for all of you, this ingredient or this ask, if you prefer, that you would like to share with any other cities that would want to embark on a local green deal. Is there anything that you would like them to suggest to do as a first step? So I don't know, maybe Councillor Miller, you want to start?
Thank you. Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is that cities have to have ambition. They shouldn't be afraid to limit their horizons. And I think, you know, what we've seen is the cities that are leading the way are often leading the way significantly, you know, with targets and aspirations and actions significantly in advance of their national or sub-state governments. And I think it is cities that are in that kind of leadership position. So having ambition is absolutely key. But if they are going to meet, for example, a 2030 target, they need to start now, and they need to be putting in place the partnerships, the processes, and the structures required to meet that aspiration.
I absolutely agree. I think raise the ambition is really something you don't have to be afraid of, and let's start. And I would ask also other cities to help us. We haven't found another title for local Green Deal, which is maybe even more inspiring. I think we need something not instead, but additionally to the local Green Deal, especially in Germany. It's an English term, and many people are not connected to this headline. So we're still working on a title. So if somebody has something for us, that could be helpful.
That's wonderful. We all heard it. Also, the colleagues on the following us online. Of course, there is an open call for names if you have better ideas. So, Mr. Baldwin, now I guess it's your turn to tell us a little bit whether there is any ask or anything that you would like to suggest to cities while you are developing your mission.
Thank you very much. I love the title of Local Green Deal, but I quite see that it might not work in German. Well, firstly, thank you. Again, please listen to these two gentlemen. Don't be afraid to come forward with your ambition. I think there are three things I'd like to stress. Work with your citizens. If they feel this is being something that is being done to them rather than with them or even by them, it probably won't work. And I think we're hearing from these guys that this is the way they intend to work. Stress the other benefits, drawing on the experience again of other cities like Mannheim, like Glasgow. And last but not least, please remember this date. Come forward with your call, come forward with your expression of interest. We will be launching that in November this year, and you'll have 2 to 3 months to reply. You've got to be in to be in. You've got to reply to be part of that process. And we really look forward to working with you. We want cities from the south and the east and the north and the west of Europe. It's got to be a group of 100 cities that looks like the European Union. And so thanks again for the chance to join in with these two remarkable cities and with the great leadership of ICLEI in today's event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baldwin, also for the direct recommendation to join and to take advantage of the opportunity of joining the city's mission. And indeed, the call is coming out very soon. So everyone should take note of that in our audience, also city representative, but that's a wonderful opportunity. I think we are almost at time, unfortunately. We had the opportunity to discuss very concrete steps that are being taken. We started by reminding ourselves about why we are here, why we are in Glasgow, why we are discussing the important transition that is needed, this transformation, structural transformation that is needed to deliver efficiently and effectively on climate change for our cities, for our communities, for our citizens. We moved on into looking into very concrete measures that are being enabled, implemented on the ground day by day, and the vision that is being not only constructed with the private sector, with the citizens, but also that is being lived in by the communities that are trying now to implement and spearhead these green deals. And we also heard the vision of the European Commission in this case, looking into how they can support, learn also from what is going on the ground, and really facilitate as much as possible the access to finance and the access to implementation for meaningful and impactful action. So I think we have a plan, we have a trajectory, we have the political commitment, we have the willingness. Now, we don't have that much time, unfortunately, at least that's what science tells us, but it's important that at least we are trying to embark all together in this journey and learning from each other and sharing with each other good ideas. Hopefully, we will also be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there and to truly implement the action that we all want to see implemented for our citizens and our future. So I want to thank very much the participants online and the participants here in the room for listening to this very interesting and insightful debate. I encourage you all to learn more about the mission, of course, but in particular about what the city of Glasgow and Mannheim are doing on the ground and about the local Green Deal. And I want to thank all my wonderful panelists for this wonderful conversation and for sharing their insight and their knowledge, and for indulging me also with our little interviews today and to learn more about what you're doing on the ground. So thank you, everyone, and I want to wish you a wonderful continuation of your day, both here and wherever you are connecting from. Thank you very much, everyone.